Hey everyone, it's Mike here from Steel Green Manufacturing, and today we're going to go over the simple process of removing the liquid system from your SGXL and installing the granular attachment kit. The granular attachment kit right now is currently sitting on the 2 jacks that come with that kit, and then you'll also have a second pair of jacks that go on your liquid system. So we'll be able to lift that system off, drive out the chassis, and then drive it underneath of this and hook it up all in 30 minutes or less. So let's get going. Okay, so first thing you're going to want to do is you're going to want to find a spot in your shop that you want to park your SGXL liquid system. Park the machine, make sure the key is off, set your parking brake, and then we're going to take our booms from the stowed position and raise them up. The booms will actually stay on the machine when the granular system goes on. So now that we have the machine parked where we want it, key off, brake on, the boom's up, we can get into the 4 attachment bolts and the quick connection couplers for the liquid system and get this thing off. All right, so the first thing you're gonna wanna do is take your set of jacks, place one on either side of the machine, and then get the 1/2-inch bolts that come with the jack and get ready to bolt these on. I always take the bolt from behind, put it through the chassis, and then we can slide the jack over those bolts, tighten them up, and then we'll be ready to move on to the 4 mounting bolts for the chassis and the liquid lines. Okay, so the next thing that we're gonna do, now that we have our jacks installed and they're bolted up tight to the chassis, is there's a couple disconnect lines that are cam lock for the liquid. One on the bottom of the machine, one right here. 2 plug-ins that feed our pressure control valve and pressure sensor, a small bleeder line on the back of the tank, and 1 plug-in to the headlight. And one other thing that I wanna mention is we need to make sure your tank is empty and we're not putting this up on the jacks with liquid in the tank. There's no need to have that extra weight on the tank. Okay, so up here on top of the tank, first thing we're going to do is disconnect this cam lock coupler. Slide those little arms, disconnect that hose, and then there's 2 plug-ins right here that feed our pressure control system. You just pull up on the tab, disconnect that, and the other one's a gray line, and you pull up on the tab and disconnect that. So now we have these 2 electrical connections disconnected and a liquid hose. And then there's one other on the back side of the tank that has a collar. It's the bleeder line that feeds from the pump back to the tank, and you just simply push up on the collar and slide the hose out. All right, so the light bar on the front of the machine is gonna have a quick attach plug right here. You just pull up on that and separate that, since the light will come off with the tank, and leave the plug in here, which will feed the new light on the granular attachment kit. And then as we move lower down here, you got the larger green suction line and a cam lock coupler here that we need to disconnect. But before we do that, you want to turn the main ball valve to the off position, just in case if there's any residual liquid in the bottom sump of the tank, to minimize any drippage. And then you just simply grab the rings, pull those ears back, pull that line out. And then that's disconnected now. This line stays on the machine and the connector is on the bottom of the tank. All right, so back here on the rear of the machine, you're gonna have a foam marker line that feeds up to a center drop for the granular system. And we're gonna go ahead and disconnect this hose just to make sure nothing gets in our way. It's a cam lock coupler, so just flip those and then pull that out. All right, so next thing we're gonna do is grab a 3/4 wrench and a 3/4 socket on an impact, or maybe a 3/4 socket on a ratchet, whichever you have. And then we're gonna go up under here to the front and the rear of the machine and remove the 4 bolts that attach the system. So we'll do that. All right, so I got my 3/4 inch back in here, and it's holding the nut on the back side of this bolt. You can go from right here, or you can actually go from around this side as well. Once you got that, holding that in place, you're good to take your impact and get that loosened up. Okay, gonna save that. Now the bolt might be under a little tension right now, but that's fine. Once we get them all loose, we'll be able to take the jacks, squeak them up a little bit, and then that'll remove everything, and anything that is tight right now will just come right out. All right, so on the rear of the machine, we're gonna have one bolt here on this side and the same on the other. So we'll be able to actually use the socket in here where you stand, the 3/4, put that on there, and then take your wrench on the back side and hold the nut still, and then back that up. Take it out. Hold on to that. You'll need it to put the granular system on with. Okay, so on the back right, you got the bolt right here. We'll take the impact, put that on there, and then reach to the inside and hold the nut still with our wrench. And loosen that one up. And take that bolt out. Hang on to it to put the granular attachment kit on. All right, so you got this bolt up here just in front of the fuel tank. So I'll put the impact on this, but I'm gonna take my wrench and just go up behind and hold the nut still. And then we can back that one up. Okay. All right, so the bolt's a little tight right now, so what we'll do is we'll just crank the jacks a little bit until it gets loose and it's not under any tension, and then it'll come right out, and then we'll be ready to start jacking the liquid system up. All right, so now that we have all 4 bolts out and the quick connection hoses and the electrical pieces unplugged, we're ready to take these jack handles, turn them clockwise, and you can either have somebody help you and do the other side at the same time, or you can just simply go back and forth and do this by yourself as well. Either way works out. Okay, so if you're doing this by yourself, you're gonna wanna periodically check under the tank as you're lifting it up, just to make sure there is nothing being tugged on, something you missed, that sort of thing. It's always good to have a pair of zip tie cutters in case you need to cut a zip tie. My light wire had a zip tie on it, so I had to remove that. And then right now I have it all the way up, and I need to slide this liquid hose that was quick connected to the bottom of the tank. This runs back to the pump, and then this line will stay with the chassis. So we just need to kind of push back on that and pull over here on the green hose and just weave that from the machine. Lay that down, and then everything should be all free and clear now, and we're good to drive the machine backwards out from underneath this tank, and then we'll park it underneath the granular system and get that hooked up. All right, so now that we have everything disconnected and we've already ran around the tank and looked underneath and made sure there's nothing that's connecting the two any longer, we're ready to take the parking brake off, start this up, back it out real carefully, paying attention to the inside of the tank and make sure that the knobs or nothing like that is going to interfere. Just take your time, back it out at idle. While you have it like this, it's a prime opportunity as well. If you needed to do any maintenance to the engine or the chassis, you'll have full access to everything. Other than that, we're ready to go ahead and take this over, make sure the granular attachment is jacked all the way up, and we can park this underneath and get ready to lower it down and hook it up. Okay, so now that we've got our chassis driven underneath our granular attachment kit, we'll be ready to get this thing lowered down and mounted up. And also, you can see behind me, we've lowered the liquid system down all the way to the store position. You don't want to leave that jacked all the way in the air. There's just no need to do that. Okay, so down here underneath the granular kit, I've taken the liquid hoses, and you can see I've just used the cam lock and connected the liquid hoses back to themselves. That'll keep these lines nice and clear going to the pump, so there will be no contamination with the granular stuff while you're using the granular attachment kit. And then this small 1/4 inch bleeder line tube, we'll just run that through the cam lock, and I'll get a zip tie, attach that around here, and keep that out of the way. So next we can lower this system down in between the mounting points, run the 4 bolts through, and then we'll make sure these hoses are out of the way and not going to be damaged by anything while we're using the granular system. Okay, so now that we got the granular system lowered down, you're going to want to just pick the corner. I'm going to start with the front and take our 1/2 inch bolt that we had saved and run this through the hole, and then take the nut and put it on the back side. You're always going to want to start this by hand. You never want to take an impact to a stainless bolt immediately. And one other thing you could do is maybe even apply some anti-seize if you have it, just to make sure you don't want to gall the threads on a stainless bolt. It's no fun. So we'll get that, run it up hand tight, and then we can take the impact and tighten that up. Okay, on to the next bolt. Okay, so on the other front side, just take your bolt, run it through. If you're not having any luck with the hole lining up, just use the jacks and add or take away some tension, and that'll help maybe wiggle the unit to line it up. So run that through, start it by hand, run it down. That way we don't mess up the threads. Hold the back side with a wrench and tighten this one up. Now onto the back. Okay, so on the rear, you'll have to reach kind of in and around the wheel well with the nut, and then you can run the bolt through and then start the nut on it by hand. So on the other side, same thing here. Run our bolt through, kind of reach up through the wheel well. It's a little tighter on the granular attachment because of these supports that run out for the trays. Get that started by hand, pass the wrench under. I'm using a standard size wrench. If you had a shorter one, it'd be a little easier, but you can definitely make it work. All right, get your socket on there and tighten this up. All right, so now that we have all 4 of the 1/2-inch bolts holding the granular system on, we're good to take these jacks off, get them out of our way so we can finish up the installation. Just take your 3/4 wrench behind, hold the head of the bolt, and run that loose. Pull that off, and I always run the bolts back through and leave it on it so you don't lose them, because you have to have these bolts to attach it. There's no other way. That way we make sure that you have good positive attachment to the unit. There we go. Okay, so to connect the light on the granular system, we just take this power line from the unit. It'll run up behind the shield. The light cable comes down behind that. Plug that in. Okay, so there's a couple hydraulic lines here that have flat face couplers. They run the hopper motor, and they're going to hook up to these ports that are already on the front left of the machine. They're male-female, so you can't mix them up. So you just got to push both those on until they lock in, and you'll be good to go. There we go. All right, so as you can see, I've taken the liquid hoses that we connected together to keep everything clean from the spray system when it was on, and I just brought them up high so they're not going to interfere with anything. Zip tied them out of the way. After that, we need to take our control that goes for the gate open and close on the granular system, and we just have to simply loosen these 2 bolts. This will slide in behind and down, and we'll tighten it back up. All right, so once you get both these carriage bolts loose that are on the machine, we can take our cable control piece, and it just slides in there, back, down. Then you can just tighten those up on the back side again, and just sandwich that in place. we get these tightened up with a wrench, we can move on to hooking up the cable. All right, so on our cable that opens and closes the gate, you're going to have a double jam nut. You're going to want to place that in here. And we'll just run that up finger tight for now. And then the cable itself has a quick attach clevis joint. Pop that off, swing it up, take that pin out, just run it up to line it up with the hole. Place the pin back through, clip it on. Now it's connected. Okay, so now we're ready to take an 11/16 wrench and tighten up this jam nut. And then the hopper open and control cable assembly is complete. Thanks for watching today's video. If you have any questions, reach out to us on social media and check out our website at stillgreenmfg.com.